And to Trending Now, and joining me again is Daisy Cousins, a YouTube star with her own video channel. Daisy, thank you so much for returning from your travels and your speaking tours and whatever it was. But can I tell you, trending on the weekend was yet more complaining, as if he hadn't done enough, by Prince Harry, the runaway royal. Yet more blaming of his poor father, this time on a podcast. Here he is.
If I've experienced some form of pain or suffering because of the pain or suffering that perhaps my father or my parents had suffered, I'm going to make sure that I break that cycle. Suddenly I started to piece it all together and go, okay, so this is where he went to school. This is what happened. I know this bit about his life. I also know that's connected to his parents.
Yeah.
So that means that he's treating me the way that he was treated.
It's strange how Harry always blames his father and never his mother. Daisy, how did this latest whinging and trashing of his father, and by the way, by implication his grandmother, the Queen, go down on Twitter?
Well, as usual, Twitter fell into two camps, and there was the typical kind of woke American indulgent camp who were loving it and cooing over Prince Harry and saying how #stunning and brave he was to talk about his apparently awful princely upbringing and awful father and awful grandparents. But interestingly enough, the rightwards-leaning camp on Twitter picked up something that was quite disturbing. In the podcast, Prince Harry described the First Amendment, which is, of course, the right to free speech and the cornerstone of the US Constitution, as, and I quote, bonkers, and said that he didn't understand it. Now, not only is this, of course, incredibly disrespectful to his host nation, it is also very revealing of his mindset as a member of not just the woke class, but the elite and the most elite faction of the elite. When you think of it through that frame, of course Prince Harry wouldn't understand that mere commoners should have a right to speak freely, because after all, you know, commoners are so susceptible to wrong think and wrong opinions and lots of wrong things, and they need an elite class of people to coddle them and tell them how to live and what to think and what to say. And it's an attitude that sort of harks back to the feudal system in a funny sort of way, which, given Prince Harry's lineage, is sort of not surprising.
I think that's absolutely correct. But what also struck me about this interview, Daisy, is that Harry credited wife Meghan Markle with making him go to see a therapist to deal with what she thought was his anger. But doesn't this expose Meghan Markle probably as a liar? I mean, didn't she say in a notorious interview with Oprah Winfrey that when she wanted to see a therapist herself, Buckingham Palace refused to give her permission? How could that be true? That Harry, the actual prince, could get therapy, but his wife could not?
Look, it's pretty extraordinary, isn't it? And I didn't actually pick that up until you mentioned it, so very well spotted. There's a giant disconnect there between the two stories, and quite a bit of a slip of the tongue from Harry. I mean, how on earth, the whole big point that they made in their interview was that the palace wouldn't let Meghan get any therapy because they thought it would look bad. Well, I'm sorry, then why would Prince Harry be allowed to get therapy, particularly at the suggestion of Meghan Markle, if the palace thought that a royal getting therapy would look bad? And it's just another claim that they made in that interview that is really quite dubious. I mean, just for one example of something that was dubious, Meghan and Harry claimed that Meghan had received no help whatsoever assimilating into royal life, and they had to do it all themselves, when it was on the record that in 2018, Meghan received 6 months of Duchess training from a very senior member of the royal staff. So there's another little nugget of untruths to add to the ever-increasing batch.